In today's economy, more people than ever are looking to buy and sell businesses. But how do you do it? Welcome to the Deal Board, presented by Transworld Business Advisors. Straight talk about real deals and real people. Listen to stories, interviews, and expert advice to help your business sale, merger, or acquisition process. Now, here are your business exit experts, Andy and Jessica.
Hey everybody, welcome. And before we get started, we have a very special announcement.
Yeah, we're coming up on our 100th episode. I mean, Andy, can you believe we've done 100 shows together already?
It is incredible. So much great information out there for people who want to buy, sell, run a business. It really runs the gamut. But we want to hear your best tips. And we're going to put together 100 business tips. But here's how it's going to work.
Yeah, so we're having a little contest to celebrate our 100th episode. So we want you to go to our new YouTube channel. If you haven't checked it out, you can find all of our video podcasts on our YouTube channel. So go to our website, thedealboardpodcast.com, and click on the little YouTube icon. Or if you're watching this online, you can just click the link that we have below. And then once you get there, we've got a few steps we need you to do, right, Andy?
Yeah, we need you to go to YouTube. We need you to subscribe. And then we need you to comment on this video, your best business tip. And it could be anything, something your mom told you, the story will help too. And we're going to pick the 10 best and we're going to bring you on the show.
Yeah, so we'll have you live on our 100th episode that's going to happen on March 18th on the show for the top 10 people. We're going to put the top 100 business tips in our show notes. And we're also going to probably have a special surprise for the best business tip as voted by the audience.
Yeah, we're going to vote right during the show. We're going to have a poll and that person's going to win a special prize.
So let's recap. So you're going to go to our YouTube channel, which you can click on the link below, and then you're going to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment on this video for your best business tip you've ever received.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. It'll be a great show. We're looking forward to having the top 10 on our show. It'll be fun. It will be on video as well. And you'll be a part of our history.
So we'll see you on March 18th.
See you then.
Transworld Business Advisors is the world's largest business brokerage and mergers and acquisitions firm with over 500 brokers in nearly 200 offices worldwide. Transworld's team handles thousands of business sales every year. To be connected with a qualified business broker or learn more about the buying and selling process, visit tworld.com/the deal board or call 888-719-9098.
Well, we are right at the top of the hour, so we're going to get going on our next live Deal Board podcast. So I'd like to first invite or welcome everyone that's attending live with us today. I know we've got, I think, over 400 or 500 people signed up for this live broadcast that we're doing. And today we're talking about the ultimate buyer's playbook for 2021.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be an incredible year. I was just trying to go live on Facebook and it kind of crashed on me. I'm not sure why, but it's going to be, we've seen this kind of marketplace only once. I was just going to say this is a twice in a lifetime opportunity, and it was last year. We had an incredible opportunity from the SBA to go out there and leverage yourself into deals. And I never thought they would do it again. I mean, the idea that they were going to give you 6 months of principal and interest, and we'll get into the details of that because they even extended that for the people that got deals last year. But it's just an incredible time to buy a business. And we think we have some guests and we're going to be taking questions. And so you're going to get your questions asked, because I think one of the biggest things that we see in people not buying a business is just a lack of education, and they're just, they're kind of frozen in fear.
Right. So today we're trying to give you all the information, and kind of how this is going to work, just to give you guys an idea, is for the next 20 minutes or so, Andy and I are going to give some overview information, and then we're going to spend the remainder of the hour answering questions. So if you do have a question, please drop it into the Q&A box that's in the footer of your Zoom screen. And Danielle is going to moderate for us, so she'll be helping us get those questions answered later in the show. But let's first dive in and let's talk about, what's going on in 2021. And one of the first big things that everyone is talking about is the SBA incentives. So We just recently had a new CARES Act that had a lot of stimulus for the economy, but some of the things that aren't being talked about in the media as much is the incentives there are to take on a new SBA loan. And for us, obviously, buying a business, a lot of business acquisitions are done with SBA loans through the 7A process. So we're seeing a couple of the biggest two is that you're able to get basically the government to pay for the first 6 months of your payments, up to $9,000 per month that you're able to have those payments basically forgiven. The government's paying the interest and the principal. And that's a really huge incentive, but it also goes deeper than that, Andy, right?
It does. I mean, there's incredible incentives for people to go out and buy a business right now. Principal and interest, like you said, for 6 months. No guarantee fees, which is 2.5% to 3%. So you're looking at about $25,000 to $30,000 per million when you buy a business, up to $9,000 a month in principal and interest payments. It's just an incredible time to buy a business. They did it last year, obviously, as we said, through September. How many deals did you close in September? I mean, we just saw a flurry of activity.
Yeah, it was a crazy, Q3 overall last year. And I think we're going to see that through now. So the incentive is February 1st through September 30th of 2021, or until funds run out. I've seen some lenders that say that the funds may run out. Andy and I don't think that's the case. They have plenty of money in the coffers to fund this program. So although, yeah, you can rush to get it done, there is no rush. And again, Andy, that no SBA guarantee fee is significant savings, and it doesn't eat into that maximum of $9,000 per month. The other big thing is that the government, the SBA, is guaranteeing up to 90% of the loan value. So how the SBA works, so you never borrow money from the SBA. You borrow money from a bank. So I'm already seeing some questions is like, will I get approved for an SBA loan? It all depends on the bank, right? But one of the reasons banks are incentivized to lend money to small businesses for acquisitions for growth is because of this guarantee where the government says, hey, if the borrower doesn't pay back a percentage of the loan, we're going to guarantee that you're going to get that money back in the bank. And that guarantee is now up to 90%. So if you think about it from a banking perspective, what the government has done is it's reduced the risk for the banks.
Yeah, and banks wouldn't be in the SBA game other than that. We've seen that over the years. We've seen the SBA change the rules. We've seen the SBA run out of money. We've seen the SBA change the guarantee, change the way they guarantee, whether or not they'll guarantee it based on certain applications. They are wide open right now. They are being as forgiving as possible. PLP lenders, preferred lenders have wide range to go out there and lend. And you're going to see a lot of banks jumping in. And we do have partner banks that we work with, that we love, that we have worked with in the past, that we feel that know this business. And so that's really important. And so part of that, and I'm seeing a question already, will that 90% guarantee reduce the borrower's down payment? No, that has not changed. That is actually a law, part of the law. It's 10% that you have to have they have to have a minimum of a 10% equity injection into the deal. But what 90% does is that it allows them to be more liberal about even deals that they might not have looked at, perhaps like risky businesses that some banks don't get involved in, like restaurants, for example. And or they might, look at somebody's credit and maybe, be able to be a little bit more lenient. Again, they're only on the hook for 10% as long as they follow the rules.
Right. So all of these incentives really open up potential financing for business acquisitions. And like Andy said, that's, we're in a market where it's beneficial for both buyers and sellers. So that's where it's really beneficial for buyers right now. If you think about, you're just getting money for free to buy a business. Right.
Yeah, and Jonathan Cho, one of our franchisees up in the Seattle area, asked us if it needs to be funded by September 30th, and the answer is yes. That's why we're doing this live. That's why there is this intensity in our voice that this is only, I keep saying, I wanted to say it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, but it's a twice in a lifetime opportunity. I even looked at my own kids and said to my girls, I said, hey, if you've ever thought about starting or buying a business, this might be the time. And September 30th, don't think you have until September 30th. You don't, right, Jessica?
No. And I think, one of the things, and Mike Shea, I know he's on the call, he talks about this a lot, is if you're a buyer, you need to back into your timeline, right? So the deal needs to be closed on September 30th, deals take time, right? And this year, especially if you're going to use a loan through the SBA process, it's going to take more time than normal. So you want to give yourself plenty of time to search for the right business and then to get through due diligence through the closing process. We've already seen lenders that used to take, 45 days to close a loan. They're now taking 60 to 75 days. There's a lot more work a lot of these banks and the SBA is doing, because on top of all this, we also still have to remember in this first quarter, we have the second round of PPP going on, which for most banks is you've got the same people processing both of this. So you need to give yourself time. So if you want to close by September 30th, you need to be looking for a deal today.
Yeah. And the other thing we saw in September was that the closing attorneys were booked up. Mm-hmm. So we have our, favorite closing attorneys, Deborah Carmen, she might even be on today, but we were literally just trying to carve out time in her schedule to make sure that the last few days, and she worked that whole weekend to make sure that she got the deals done that we needed to get done. I mean, it was a rush, and we expect the same kind of rush this year. And there are some things that are unique in the marketplace right now that we could talk about. And one of them is lower inventory because of that rush last year. And because the COVID crisis did affect several industries, greatly, we see less inventory right now. So it is an incredible time for sellers to sell as well.
Right. And we have seen, on the buy side, we've seen recently, in the last 3 weeks, we've seen interest peak up on people wanting to sell their business. And we've talked about this on the show in the past, but we're in an interesting time where we just went through, or still going through a pandemic, and it's affected a lot of businesses, but it's also intersecting with the main demographic of business owners, which are baby boomers. Baby boomers own more than 50% of small businesses in America, and they're approaching retirement age. So we're at this really great crosshairs that there is going to be some great opportunities. And we have seen interest tick up between our two offices, at least over the last 3 weeks. So we do expect the inventory to come back up, but it's still going to be a competitive place for buyers. We actually did a really great show. I think, Andy, that was back pre-pandemic because we did it in your office, but it was about how to win a deal as a buyer. And I think that's going to be a good show to listen to and an important skill set, because there is going to be competition for deals.
Yeah, we do have, there's definitely competition for deals. It's still an incredible seller's market. But that doesn't mean that there's not good businesses to buy and that people are winning buying. And one of our first guests that we'll bring on is Jonathan, who's bought several businesses from us. I'll give it another minute or so, but I just wanted to cover some of these questions that are coming in. So it is still a $5 million cap on deals, but you can get more money if there's real estate involved with a blended 504 loan or a larger 7A loan, up to $15 million. Some of the SBA lenders like NewTek, like Live Oak, have programs for traditional lending above $5 million. So it's a pretty sizable business you could get yourself into with these programs. And then, we could talk about, valuation too, that the values of 2020, the valuation based on 2020 is already being thrown out for good and for bad. There's been some businesses that have done incredibly during this downturn. You're thinking like food distribution, food delivery, contracting, cleaning. Some businesses have had a boom because of the COVID crisis. Those businesses probably won't see added value, especially if their revenues and earnings return to normal levels, say at the end of 2021. Now, the good news is for a lot of businesses that have been affected negatively, and most of them have been, those values won't affect their, as soon as they could come out of this in 2021. And some of them already have come out of it, right? We've seen states opening up. We see businesses opening up, people getting more comfortable how to work, people pivoting inside the businesses. So if they've returned to those levels, we were talking to John Wall yesterday, and he told us that they're looking for about 3 months of returned profitability and revenues for those values, and they'll still approve the deal.
Yeah. And I think that's a good lesson, and it is true. So when we're talking in terms of valuation too, it's not just like what we say as brokers or a buyer says, but you have to remember when you're going through a lending process that there's also going to be appraisers involved. So one of the last steps in the process is these bank appraisers or third-party appraisers that work for the bank. And that's really important if you're looking at a business that was negatively affected by COVID, that they're not looking at this 2020 because the appraisal numbers could be way off.
Hey, Andy, do you know what time it is? It's time for our deal of the week.
Deal of the week. Sold.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. And it is Deal of the Week. And we have an interesting one. We have my longtime partner, Ray Copell, back. And Ray, welcome back. Ray is from Transworld Business Advisors of Fort Lauderdale, literally sits across the hall from me. And Ray, you've been working on a deal for a while, and it came through. Why don't you tell us about it?
I'd be pleased to do so. Thanks for having me, Andy. This was a fast casual restaurant, well-established franchise in the local area. The brand is Miami Grill, and they have the drive-thru, which really helped in the downtime. Of course, it got shocked with COVID-19 and paused, like many businesses, and then it came back to life. And that kind of, slowed things down. But I sold the business to the people 15 years ago. And if you stay in touch with the people over time that you sold a business to, eventually they'll want to sell. They came back about 5 years ago. Oh, we're thinking of selling. They hadn't got their numbers really straightened out, cleaned up. So I helped them do that. It's a good thing to do. You can have someone look at their tax returns and make sure they're in line to get the best value out of the business and not varying things too badly. Not that this people did it in particular. When they were ready, we went on the market. And there were a bunch of offers, and it took a lot of time just to manage through the franchisor. So you got to pay attention to the details, stay on top of what's going on, keep in touch with the people, keep them informed, ask them for answers to problems or questions, help them create their own solutions, keep communicating, and help them stick to their passion. Why are they doing this? Why is the seller selling? Understand that from the beginning and keep them tuned into that, reaching their goal. And they'll make those decisions to help them get through. Same thing with the buyer. Why are they buying the business? What do they really want to achieve? Help them focus there with them. That'll really, help you succeed. And here's a little tool that I came up with this one that you may find helpful is keep an Excel spreadsheet of what's going on, the sales for every month. So you send it over to the seller. What are the sales this month? And if a buyer comes along, you know the current sales. If you see a big drop or a big increase, what's going on? Keeps you informed of the business and keeps the seller in touch and knows you're working with them. It's very helpful. And never give up attitude. You got to be willing to find answers, a creative thing. Had a few recent things that came along. One where a buyer's going to put up a bigger deposit than they normally would because the seller was concerned that they weren't into the deal enough. Well, the buyer had the money to put it up. They want to do the transaction. And then the buyer's going to get a credit from the seller towards an earnout that this particular transaction's doing. Because of an account that may come and may go, they don't know, and it changes over COVID and what may get resolved. So a creative solution there, looking for answers, and this came out of the seller. So you don't know who's going to come up with new ideas, and just being persistent and staying on top of it and communicating, try to touch any deal you're working on, meaning something, an offer signed one way or the other way. Once it's signed, pretty much every day you should be in touch. What's going on? What happened today? Where's it supposed to go? If you don't, you're going to lose out and you're not going to be able to help. And when the stuff hits the fan, you won't really know why.
Yeah.
So keep on top of it. That's what it takes.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a very complicated deal, and it took a long time, and there was a lot of moving parts. Obviously, with the COVID crisis, that was just one more thing, and that's why it's so important to have someone like Ray by your side. Ray, why don't you give us a little bit of the price, down payment, how'd that go, if possible?
Can do. The asking price started at $850. It came into the market when we finally got to market range There were multiple offers all around the same range of 650. Ended up selling at 600 because the seller was due and is still due, and the deal closed with the PPP loan that they're supposed to get back of 58,000. So it was 600 easily financeable through SBA, but the buyer came up with an all cash deal. So another reason why you stick with a particular buyer, when it can pay all cash, done deal. That's the name of the game.
Wow. Sounds like a great deal for everyone. Good deals for good people. Ray, if someone wanted to get in touch with you to talk more about maybe selling another Miami grill or just selling a deal in general, how best?
Best to get a hold of me these days on the cell phone, of course, 954-464-6290. And anyone else listening on the call wants to know deal of the week, let me know how I can help you. Bye now.
Great. Thanks, Ray. I really appreciate it.
You're always welcome, Andy.
We've talked a little bit about some opportunities. We've got lots of questions coming in already. Please continue to drop your questions in the Q&A. I see some coming in the chat as well. Q&A would be super helpful for us so we can watch one screen. But Andy, do you want to introduce Jonathan and let him talk a little bit about his story?
One of the first processes, Jonathan Wolfson, he has several companies, but they've just rebranded the whole thing, by the way, which we appreciate, Jessica. We're talking about rebranding several companies, but Nature's Expert is their new brand. Jonathan, do I have to bring him in, Danielle, or can you help me do that?
Hey, everybody. Hey, Andy. Hey, Jessica.
How you doing?
Hi. You just have to let me join with the video. Oh, there we go.
There you are.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome. So Jonathan probably is the best customer we've ever had because him and his brother have bought several businesses from us. And Jonathan, I want you to just tell me what you said yesterday, because I thought it was a great point that a lot of buyers just don't do this. And they're just scared.
Which point are you talking about? We went over a whole bunch of lots of really fun and
just
exciting stuff.
People are afraid to do this. They just need to have the guts to do this.
So I was speaking to Andy yesterday, and I said that, a lot of industries now we're going into a different phase of business where there was the old type of ownership and then there's the new type of ownership. And the thing is that there's beginning to be a lot of openings in the market where very established old businesses are coming for sale, that even newer companies can really take and elevate their position way more than they can even think, because they're being able to capitalize on a business that's been around for 50 years. They were before that kind of media age as far as getting into computers. They never got into computers. They never got into social media. They never got into a website, which we've come up with a lot. And it has all this good track record, and they don't even have any real footing for people to find them. So I definitely have found I would say, niche with my brother Jeff, that we're obviously, our ears are always to the ground looking for different opportunities and things that are coming available, which obviously in turn brings them to kind of us on some new deals that we've found recently that we've done with Transworld. But it really is, I think, an amazing time for anyone looking to purchase a business, that you can really take a new business, even that you're an owner operator or something, and grow in a new business and make it have the establishment period that can elevate you to really grow a lot quicker. To be able to have that leverage when you're looking at customers that are either larger or bigger or increasing your scale. And it really has been really exciting, because I'm younger. I'm only 34. My brother's 50. So I've done this for 14 years now. And it's interesting that when I started, this opportunity wasn't available. But now the last businesses that we've purchased, the owners have been in their 60s and a little bit older. And there's a lot of business owners that are really in that territory where they started their business in the 80s. And now they're into the retirement phase. And those were the people that were kind of really starting like the whole culture of whether you in landscaping like we're in, or you were in selling a business or selling a widget or anything like that. All those people are starting to get into retirement, which really can project, I think, people into the future.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. You've done several deals. Just give everybody a little idea of what you do. We'll give you a little plug and tell us some of the deals that you've done and just kind of recently.
So over the last, I would say 5 years, we've purchased 4 different companies. And, we set out originally with an intention to be open to what's available. We started, whenever I started working with my brother 14 years ago, we had an interior flower shop. We did interior plant maintenance, holiday decorating and lighting, and we subbed out exterior landscaping and tree trimming. So at a certain point, we decided, we want to start bringing some of these services in-house, and we want to, have more control because, God forbid the subcontractor that you use doesn't do his job and it hurts your own reputation. So there literally was a certain turning point that we decided we wanted either a landscape or a tree business. And we were open-minded to either one, figuring out what was going to fit best within our model. So the first one that we found, the owner actually saw one of our trucks at another property and sent us a letter, just kind of soliciting that he was for sale. And that was really the first turning point. It was called Sherlock Tree Company that we purchased. And Transworld actually helped with that deal as well. That was in like the very beginning stages. That was, I think 8 years ago, 2012, 2013. And from there, we purchased another tree company that allowed us to branch into the HOA market. And then from there, we purchased a pest control company. So we did interior pest control, fertilization, ants, roaches, all that stuff. And then, which these are all service related businesses that bolt onto each other so we can have some cross referencing and marketing of services. And then from there, we were still subbing out a lot of our exterior landscape maintenance, and it was going fine. But again, it's not, subbing out work is only a short-term solution. It's not long-term success really. So we went out and through Transworld, it's very important to find the right business and the right niche that aligns with what you're looking for. And the thing is that they're definitely out there, but it comes available when it comes available. And you have to always be looking, and you have to always be kind of ready to take something as it comes, whether it's in your high season, your low season, depending what your cash flow is. You need to always be you need to always be ready. So the business I think that we purchased is called Diaz Brothers. It was a Transworld listing. They weren't interested in selling to South Florida people. They were looking for out-of-state people. And ironically, we knew of the business. Sherlock Tree Company was a subcontractor for the company. And the owners, through over time, the business had the reputation, but the profit and all that stuff over the years had kind of dwindled down. So it actually was good for us because we actually bought a long-term reputation, 50 employees, a management staff, everything that we were looking for, but it was just inefficiently run. So the thing is that with something like that, if you have the ability to work and your industry, there's always things that you can improve. So we literally did a complete 180 with that business. We moved to the location. We took a business that it was losing money when we purchased it. And it's now done a complete 180. And we probably grew last year, which was our first full year, probably by 25%, in volume. And the last deal we did that Transworld helped us with was one called Coastal Gardens. And how we utilized Transworld in this particular deal was one of our managers was out in the field at one of these nurseries. And they said, this person, John from Coastal Gardens, is selling his business. It goes along with exactly what you guys are wanting to do. It's high-end residentials that are only on Palm Beach Island. It's exactly what you guys are looking for. So he mentioned it to us. So we got in touch with Randy at Transworld, and he helped us in a unique way, which was kind of making sure that we're taken care of as, we're business entrepreneurs. But when you look at business deals, you have to make sure you have the right eye who's really going to watch out for certain things and give you the different perspective, because someone's going to sell you something different directly, face to face, versus the kind of side conversations they're going to have with somebody who's representing you to help you make the best decision. So those little things that are said with somebody from Transworld, like with Randy, who is one of our advisors, is really important because it kind of gives you the secret inside point where it's not coming on like we're being aggressive saying we're talking bad about his business. This is a professional that sells businesses, that knows what they're doing, that is like, hey, this doesn't make sense, what's going on here, or whatever. So I think it really gave us a great opportunity to leverage these different relationships that we have with Transworld, and I know you said Deborah Carmen, and all these people that really can know your business. So I think creating a team really is how we've added all these different services and businesses to this point now, to where we have 5 different companies that me and my brother own, to really kind of give us such amazing flexibility now into the future, where we're looking into buying a supply company that sells soil and pots and landscape supplies, that provides for nurseries and landscapers all throughout South Florida. So I think that my advice to everybody is to, with these SBA options that are available right now, with the different change in the market, there is definitely opportunity, because there's people that are looking to maneuver and pivot out, who are scared, which rightfully so. There's a lot that's going on. But if you have a successful business currently, there is no way you can't continue growing on your business and bolting on to still continue to be even more so successful. Because if you know how to navigate last year, and you don't have like something where you're selling sanitizing something and your business quadrupled, and you're a regular service-based or sales business, then like the sky is the limit. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I
you
agree.
capitalize.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot to unpack there, Jessica.
I know. Well, it was funny because I was like, well, I was going to ask you like advice, but you gave so many great tips in there, Jonathan. And we actually do have your story on another podcast too. We should drop that into the show notes. But I liked that you said you have to be open, right? So we just talked about that there is limited inventory, and it sounds like a lot of the deals you guys have done is because you've been open to what's available on the market at the time, and you've been able to take those companies and pivot to make it successful for you. I like that you brought up the advisors. I mean, we tell everybody a lot of times too, that like, let us be the bad guys, right? Because the buyer and seller
Absolutely.
have to maintain that really great relationship. But there's so much great advice in there. And you guys have obviously been very successful in growing through acquisition. And the last thing, it sounds like you're going to continue to do so. So you still see opportunity in the marketplace?
There really is. I think that I really would recommend to anybody, everyone that owns any sort of business at all, you really can, the market the best. So whether they're businesses that are for sale or not, there's always, quote, friendly competition that's out there, because there's really more business than anyone could really frankly ever handle. And the thing is that you might as well try to set yourself up with different people that are in your network that know that you're interested in growing, so they can come to you, and then you can use somebody like Transworld, like I said, to allow for them to be the bad guys. You can be the good guy. You can be the friends. Give them obviously your instructions of how you want to handle the deal, and the time will come. You know what I mean? Like if you want to buy ABC floors, guess what? ABC floors will be for sale at some point. So you have to just be patient and calculated and persistent and always open, because you don't know if it's going to be listed, or you don't know if he's already for sale, or if he's thinking that he's going to be for sale in 3 years.
Right.
So if you know someone's going to be for sale in the upcoming future, you almost can plan also too, to be like, well, I'm either ready in the upcoming future, or that's going to be too fast for me. And you can really start, strategically pivoting in your own business.
All great points. And just you gave us a great time to plug our buyer match program. So everybody should, go on our website. And what's the website again? T-World BizMatch?
It's tworld.com/BizMatch. So BIZ match. And you can sign up for an account there. If you're already signed up, you can update your profile there. And one of the great reasons we developed this is because, like Jonathan said, you just don't know what's going to come on the market and when. So you can set your search parameters, and it can automatically ping you when a new business is listed anywhere in the country. Actually, it's anywhere in the world, right?
Yeah, it's anywhere.
Yep.
Anywhere in the world, I believe. But what I would also say is that if you're working with one of our advisors, you could go to their websites, so that way they both get you both get pinged that when there's something new on. But again, Jonathan was great in saying that you need to be opportunistic, right? So nothing's going to be a perfect fit, but if you're opportunistic and you can see the upside, it's a great time to buy a business. Jonathan, thanks for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
You're so welcome. Happy to be a part of it. Thank you, guys.
Yes.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Hey, Jessica, you know what time it is?
Money time?
Almost. It's time for listing of the week. Hey, we're back, and it is listing of the week. And I have Art Warsorff from Transworld Business Advisors of Utah County. Art, welcome. We were just pre-talking and saying that businesses are flying off the shelves pretty quick. So tell us about the one you have today.
Great, Andy. This is a great business. It is a high-end, full-service steakhouse. A lot of Latin restaurants, fresh ingredients, and really was doing phenomenally well pre-COVID. Like everybody had a little challenges during COVID, but they came out quite well. And there were a couple things they did, which really gets me excited about this business, is while they were fine dining, spoke with the owner, and he was really frustrated during COVID when they were shut down because he said, my food doesn't travel well. I can't do takeout and delivery, which is really critical for survival. So all of his clients and his customers kept saying, please, please, what can you do? So he created a special menu during COVID with daily specials that were particularly good for takeout and delivery. So that kept him engaged with his customers and continuing to do reasonably well through COVID. And as restrictions eased over the last couple months, he is as full as he can be. And he's ending up with a phenomenal year in 2020, which many would not have expected. So very excited about what he's doing and the potential for growth with this concept, potentially into other cities and other locations.
Yeah, so it sounds like a good listing. It sounds like one of those listings that I keep talking to people about that they should be looking for, a business that's going to thrive once this is done. So if you're trying to time it, this is the time to buy something like this. Tell us how much he's asking.
Okay. We have an asking price of $780,000. The owner is willing to finance a portion of it, and he's making 2019. He made over $400,000 in 2019, and 2020 may just be off a little bit from that, given everything. In 2021, sky could be the limit.
Yeah, sounds like a good deal, Art. What's the best way to get in touch with you if someone wants to find out more?
Okay, they can email me at utahcounty@tworld.com or call me on my cell phone, 801-557-6713.
Great. I really appreciate it. Sounds like a good deal. I appreciate you coming on today.
Great. Thank you, Andy.
Got a lot of questions to get to. So we got about 30 minutes left. Again, if you have questions, please drop them into the Q&A, but we're going to jump in now and we're going to try and answer all of your questions as best we can. And again, this can be anything about buying a business, how the SBA incentives would apply, any types of questions. So let's just jump in and kind of answer these one by one. So the first question comes from Scott, and he's asking, what classifies or what guidelines does the SBA use to qualify a business for an SBA loan? So kind of going back to, you don't borrow money from the SBA, you borrow money from a bank. So there's certain minimum qualifications that the SBA program has, but really that's a conversation you need to have with the bank that you're going to be working with on what their qualifications are. Some banks don't loan to restaurants. Some banks are looking more at direct industry experience than others. And it's always good to talk to two or three. If you are working with a business broker, usually they'll have suggestions on who's a good bank to talk to. Two of our partners, Andy mentioned New Tech and Live Oak, are great in working with deals. But if you need other suggestions, but at the end of the day, on terms of qualifications, you need to be talking to your banker.
Yeah, and there are other banks out there, of course, that we like to work with as well. And Centennial, I'm just trying to think some of them off the top of my head. And one of them happens to be on. Larry Carnell from Bennett Trends is another great option to leverage yourself into a business. They have a great programs where you can use your retirement funds to leverage into a business, and you don't pay capital gains. It's a really unique way to get into a business, but there's plenty of ways to get into business. Mike asked Shay, asks, how does collateral work in the deal? Well, most of these deals aren't collateralized. I mean, and that's the beauty of the SBA program, that it could be a pure cash flow deal. Now, they do take collateral. They do ask you to sign up for your house and then things like that, but it doesn't have to have collateral. You want to take the next one?
Yeah. So Oscar's asking, do they, I'm assuming banks accept seller financing as part of a down payment? The answer is yes. It's going to depend on the bank in terms of what the percentage they're going to allow that in. And obviously you have to negotiate that with the seller. There's specific rules and guidelines around when the seller note gets repaid. And that's a big part of the negotiation in the deal.
Yeah. And Narav asks, can 10% equity be from a seller that is fully subordinated to the senior loan? So number one, they do like seller financing. A lot of the banks like seller financing, but the 10% has to be from you. Mm-hmm. Beyond that, it can be from the seller, and banks might want more than 10% in a deal, and it can come from the seller. And yes, that loan will be subordinated for a certain period of time, for the whole time, but they may not even allowed to have, it might be interest only for a period.
Right. And that actually kind of answers David's question as well. Kelly's asking, will the 90% guarantee reduce the PG and collateral? So, this goes back to, again, it depends on the bank, right? So, and there's very few actually SBA regulations, but in theory, the 90% guarantee should reduce the personal guarantees. But I think in practice, a lot of the banks are still going to require that. There is a provision with SBA loans that if you do own or have it as, I think it's like 25% or more equity in a personal home, Andy,
right,
that is, they will take that as personal collateral. And I don't believe that has changed. So.
No, really, the program hasn't changed. I mean, it just got better and with more incentives. So, Habib is asking, is the SBA financing available for business without real estate? Yes, that's the 7A program, and it's done a great job over the years. Otherwise, like we said, most banks wouldn't touch a business sale. So we do want them, you do not need real estate.
Yeah. And I did see a question in the chat is, can you purchase real estate with these SBA programs? And yes, you can. You can do that with either the 7A program, but we also typically see with the 504, and the same incentives apply for those loans for real estate as well.
Yeah. And I'll tell you that one of our brokers just chimed in and said they listed a new business. They got 75 buyer matches. And so two things to the buyers. Number one, that's great for us, and we will eventually chase all those down. And that's great for sellers that there's buyers available. Not all those buyers fill out their profile properly. So if you don't want to get matched to every single thing across the United States and you're looking for a business in Colorado or Texas or Florida or California, make sure you just put the geographies in that you want. I mean, it's unrealistic to think that you're going to probably drive more than an hour away to work every single day to buy business. Now, there may be some exceptions to that, businesses online and things like that. But for the most part, you're not going to buy a business that's very far away from your house. It gets old very fast. We've seen that happen over time. So Avinash asks a great question. Does experience matter? And so, yes, the banks want to see some relevant experience. Now, sometimes it doesn't have to be in the industry directly. You can have management experience and get into a business, but if you're buying a restaurant, they're probably going to want to see some sort of restaurant experience. Now, you can have a manager and you or a partner that signs on the loan too. Gets a little bit more complicated, but yes. So.
And moving on to a question not related to SBA. So Kevin asks, what are we seeing in terms of selling price as a multiple of EBITDA these days? On average, is that stable or increasing? And really, it's funny. It's actually been pretty stable. If you look at the industry I just pulled these numbers the other day. If you look at the industry, all deals done under $10 million for the last 10 years, the average stays pretty consistent at, I think it was 2.2 times SDE. And we've talked about this on the show before. Going through the pandemic, there were winners and losers. There were businesses that did better than others. But on average, we've seen the multiples stay fairly stable.
Yeah. And so, but anecdotally,
Yeah.
just the supply and demand kind of thing, we think they're creeping up. And they should creep up as competition for deals. We have seen some deals sell for more than asking price. Certainly not like some of the hot real estate markets where things go for immediately more than listing price. But we're seeing it. And so Michael Shea asked another great question that I liked. And why should sellers care about the eventual wave of boomers? Back to the supply and demand. We do think that that there will be a lot of sellers coming to the marketplace in 2021 for a few reasons. A lot of businesses are hanging on for dear life. They've gotten PPP. They might have another shot at a PPP loan. They're hanging on, but they've had it. And this is it. And when things return to normal, they're going to be given a call. We're already getting the calls. So we think there's going to be a ton of boomers. As some of my sports broadcasters say, Father Time doesn't lose. I mean, never loses. Tom Brady will stop playing at some point, even though he's 43 and he's beating the odds. Everybody's going to have to, who owns a business, who's a baby boomer, is going to have to transition that business. And if it floods the market at any one period, yes, it can turn into a buyer's market, and we could see a time where prices come down. Perhaps even incentives come down to buy businesses.
Right. And right now we haven't seen that. It's been like a steady trickle on the market, a little bit more every year from that demographic. But why sellers should care is there is that potential, right? And I think, say you own a liquor store in your neighborhood, you'd rather be the only liquor store on the market than competing with 5 to 10 others.
So that's eventuality, not even a.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there's just a number. All right. What do we got up next?
Diana, you answer.
Right. So Diana is asking clarification if the SBA loans are taken out by the target business or the person that is buying it. And we'll take a step back, and sorry for the confusion here, but when you're buying a business, the person buying the business, the buyer, is taking out a loan with the bank to give the funds to the seller. So that's where the cash for purchasing the business is coming from. So all of these SBA loans are taken out by the buyer. The business is actually not, the seller is not actually taking on any additional debt.
And so Pluri asked a question about buying a business with no money down. So, there's a lot of late night, used to be able to buy videotapes on how to buy real estate with no money down. I really haven't seen that. I've seen it every once in a while. I've seen people turn over their businesses to kids and or friends or family or employees that do a complete earnout, but we're not handling those transactions for the most part. And I've even told a friend he had $10,000, and I said, $10,000 is probably not going to buy you business. Yes, there are some franchises out there. A shout out to the Network Lead Exchange at UFG. You could buy for, I think it's $9,000, but for the most part, you're not buying a business for, because you have to have money afterwards. So it's got to be like $40,000. And where do you get it? Yes, it's the, Friends, Family, and Fools Network. I mean, you have to borrow money. I borrowed money from my father-in-law to buy Transworld. God bless him. Thank you for taking that insane risk with me. He says it wasn't a risk, but it was, so yes, it's tough. I mean, I do think, and I think it's sort of illegal still, but I do think there's going to be a way to crowdfund businesses. It's not quite there yet. They haven't come up with the rules. It's a little bit like selling shares in equity, but I mean, you could do a personal fundraise.
Yep. Yeah,
you just can't give equity for it yet. So
yeah, and it's a great question. We know that there's speakers and coaches out there that are telling you can buy businesses for no money down. But like Andy said, we're just not seeing them. You probably should have at least 10 to 20% down is what we see as a minimum for purchasing a business. So the next question comes from Jason. He's asking if he can use SBA loans to buy out a business partner, and that is typically the case. You can do that. It depends on if there was any original debt with the company, but again, we'd suggest talk to your bankers about that, but that is a possibility. These, again, the SBA loans for our world really affects business acquisitions, but you can use the 7A and the 504 program to buy real estate, to get growth capital for your current company. You can buy equipment. So there's a lot of different uses for these loan programs, not just business acquisitions.
Right. So some people are asking about the buy side representation. I mean, it is a great idea. We have had companies come to us. We have an M&A division that we all work in, and we've had companies come to us because, again, it's so hard to find companies that they do hire us to go out there and search, and they will pay the commissions. Now, the advantage to a buyer paying the commission, you're thinking, why would I pay a commission if I were a buyer? Well, if you have an industry that you want to go for, we can approach those companies. Again, we can be the bad guys, much like Jonathan was talking about. And we can tell them, guess what? If you sell to this buyer, there's no commission involved. So we have had buyers do that. It's getting more popular because it's such a buyer's market of people. There's so much money on the sidelines in private equity and family offices and strategic buyers. So, but today we're talking a little bit more about smaller deals.
Right. Yeah. But if you are interested in buy-side services, you can contact your local Transworld office to talk about that. So you can go to tworld.com and search our locations and contact the office that's near you or the office that's serving the geographic area where you're looking to buy a business. Okay. We talked about the real estate one.
Got a lot of PPP questions in the
Okay.
But the next one, is there any restrictions for out-of-country buyers with regard to the SBA program? I do believe you have to be a United States citizen, right?
I think so. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I know John Wall's on here and he's a banker. So a lot of these questions are better answered by him. So John, maybe you can chime in and clarify that you have to be a U.S. citizen.
Or a resident, a green card. And somebody, are there any benefits, to using the SBA to buy your real estate? He owns a child care center. Yes. If you went out and bought a new building for your business right now, you'd get 6 months free. That's what we're talking about. This is an insane program. And the only, you can't buy a shopping center and only occupy 10%. You have to occupy 50% or more of whatever you're buying. So if you have a child care center, go out and buy something.
Yeah.
And Kim, I'll follow up with Kim's question. If an owner wants to sell stock to some higher level employees, can the SBA loan be used by the employees to finance their purchase? The answer is usually no. The owner has to leave and sell 100% of the business. The SBA wants no part of the owner having either equity or staying on afterwards as an equity partner.
Yeah. And usually that even goes to there's term limits on how long the owner can stay on as a contractor or employee. Right. So just John Wall did chime in. There was a couple of clarifications that the rule is that the business has to be 51% U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident ownership for SBA financing. Thank you, John. So the next question, Avinash is asking typical closing costs in addition to the down payment. So things that you're going to be looking at as a buyer that you're going to have in terms of costs to buy a business. So obviously there's the purchase price. We've talked about the down payment. We've talked about that the guarantee fees are waived. So that's going to reduce your closing costs. It doesn't eliminate them for the loan, but it drastically reduces them. The other costs that you're going to look at for buying a business is to your advisors. So we strongly suggest on the buy side that you have legal representation. And I'm not going to quote how much that is because it ranges deal to deal and which depending on the attorney you hire. We always recommend you hire a transactional law attorney, someone that's experienced in doing business acquisitions for the market size you're in. So for most of us, that's Main Street. And then you probably will also have an accountant to help you review those financials. So those are some of the costs that you'll have associated with buying the business.
Yeah. And somebody asked about using your IRA for the that 10% down payment, I believe you can. I don't think they have a problem with that. Obviously, you would have penalties if you took it out as cash. But again, you could use something like Benetrends and use that program. They are SBA lenders as well, and they could help you do that.
Yep. And then the next question is about the personal collateral. Again, the question is, if you have good credit, do you still need to give personal collateral with the bank if you meet that equity limit? And the answer is yes. John will also clarify that in the chat. John from Live Oak, thanks for chiming in on this, but that's an SBA rule. So the banks aren't really going to get around that personal collateral.
And so, so the laws of physics. So the SBA loans are capped at 10 years for the 7A program for something without real estate. But if it does have real estate, it could be 25 years. And depending on what the values of those two things, you could blend it. So you could wind up anywhere between 10 and 25.
Yep. The next question is, do we release any valuation metrics on a monthly or quarterly basis with regards to current valuations in the marketplace? We don't, because our transactions are private and we are bound by confidentiality to our clients. One great resource is BizBuySell, which is a marketplace for businesses, puts out a quarterly insight report. It's not exactly valuation data, but you can see, what's closing in the marketplace, how many deals are closing, what the average multiple is across all industries. And I believe they just released their final 2020 report.
Yes. Do PPP dollars issued to a seller under round 2 have to roll over to the new owner? No, that's a loan that that the old seller has to take care of. And so the money has to be escrowed at the closing table. A lot of the banks some of the banks are confused on how to do that. The ones that are doing SBA loans know how to do it, but it has to be taken care of. So.
I was also just reminded by Danielle, we do have a business valuation calculator on our website that was recently launched. So you can go on there and you could put in some data about the business that you're looking for. I think we were asking for gross revenue and the net profit to the owner. And then that'll pull a rule of thumb. So it'll give you a range of values that we're seeing. And we do update those metrics on a daily basis, or not daily basis, on a quarterly basis or so. The next question, there's a question about finding a closed restaurant in Atlanta, Georgia. We do have a number of offices in Atlanta. So if you go on tworld.com and search for our office locations in Georgia, you can pull up the one closest to you.
So if an SBA is taken out by a buyer, can the company be by a company instead of an individual? It always has to be personally guaranteed. Sure, it can be by a company, but it has to be a person. And yes, you can get an SBA loan to buy another company. So again, that's what we're talking about. You want a guy. Look at Jonathan. He went out. They've got like 6 under their belt, and they're not stopping. Mm-hmm. So
yeah. We have another question about PPP forgiveness, and do we see sellers hesitating to sell, waiting for that forgiveness? And we have seen a mix. We have seen people waiting for their forgiveness to come through. I do believe that's why we've seen an uptick in seller inquiries in the last 3 weeks, is because they've gotten clarification on the forgiveness process, especially for those smaller loan dollars.
I'll talk about the EBITDA and SDE multiple. So you're looking at 2 different numbers there, right? So an EBITDA multiple and an SDE multiple should equal each other. So EBITDA, the only difference being the owner's salary package. So yes, EBITDA's run from 4 to 6 times SDE, but and owner benefits usually, SDE is usually about 2 to 3. And the easy example is, if something had $400,000 worth of SDE and you multiplied it by 2, that'd be $800,000. And if you took out a management salary of $200,000 and now you were left with $200,000 of EBITDA and multiplied by 4, you still have 800. So they should equal each other. But obviously, as the business gets smaller, the EBITDA wouldn't come into play. So where can you get more information about those things? There's things like deal stats and biz comps, and so you could order reports from those. Peer comps is another one. Your local Transworld folks have access to those types of databases. So if you're really interested and want to work with them, we have a thing called the broker of opinion of value. If you own a business, we could help you do a broker opinion of value. If you have a target business and you want to order a valuation, if it doesn't need to be certified, again, a broker opinion of value is a great tool for that. You need to get something a little bit more hefty than just plugging numbers into a website sometimes.
There was a question / a comment to bring up that why banks don't generally do smaller deals. So we haven't talked about this a lot, but there's not a hard and fast rule on the size of the deal, on a minimum size on what a bank can do with SBA. But typically you'll see banks, they're not going to do very, very small transactions. And we talk about that. It's, let's say ballpark, like less than $250,000. And just because there's not enough money in it for the bank, to plain and simple. But there are tools that if you're looking for smaller deals that you can use. We've talked a lot about seller financing on the show, earnouts. There's these nonprofits called CDFIs, and they're community led. So they'll be in your community, and they have smaller loan packages too. Like the one in Colorado will actually do loans starting at $5,000. So those are the good things to look into too, if you're looking for smaller loan sizes.
So, and when somebody asked the question, we're talking about valuation. What is usually added to that, or what's included in SDE? Is accounts receivables usually included? So no, accounts receivables and cash are usually not included in our deals. They do eventually get included most of the time because the buyer wants to control the process of collecting future AR, so that may be added. Things that are typically included are the assets that it takes to basically make that SDE. And yes, somebody was asking me a question today about collateral, because they own trucks. He actually has a roofing company. And he says, well, is it 2 times plus the trucks? And it's like, no, the trucks create the 2 times. So that's included. And so is your inventory or working level of inventory. So all the assets that go into buying a business, furniture, fixtures, equipment, and some level of inventory is included in that valuation, which should be included in the deal. Accounts receivables and cash of that business is usually not included.
Mm-hmm. So we've got a lot of great questions, but we're also coming up on the top of the hour. So last call, if you have any additional questions about buying a business in 2021, I just want to put a plug in again for our business match program, the buyer match. So tworld.com/bizmatch. So you can stay on top of what's coming on the market. Also, if you aren't subscribed to our podcasts, we do these podcasts. We release a new episode every 2 weeks. It's on the dealboardpodcast.com. We're also on all the podcasting apps. And if this is your first show with you, go back through our library. We have a lot of episodes about how to be successful with a buyer. As a buyer, we've already talked about one is like how to win a deal. That was a great episode. We have a number of different episodes where we have lenders on the podcast that are really talking through what the process of borrowing a loan is. So we'll jump back in. Andy, is there any last questions we want to answer before we wrap up the top of the
hour? What are the cons of an SBA loan? I don't know if there's any cons of an SBA loan. Listen, you're taking a loan, you're taking a risk. But, listen, in life, it is about taking risk. I think what Jonathan and I were talking about yesterday that he really didn't get to was the fact that you have to be a risk taker, right? You're going to go to an accountant, you're going to go to an attorney. Those aren't risk takers. Those people manage risk, and they're not going to tell you to buy a business. Neither is your mother-in-law, neither is your brother. My brother's an attorney, and his famous line always is, I wouldn't do that if I were you, Andy. And he's not me. Jessica and I are entrepreneurs. We're risk takers. You have to just get it around your brain that you're a risk taker. Yes, you're signing up personally for a loan from the government. The government wants to be paid back. I mean, have I seen settlements out there? Have I seen liquidations? Have I seen bankruptcies? Sure. But for the most part, who are you betting on when you buy a business? You're betting on yourself Do you want to bet on WorldCom? Do you want to bet on, what's the latest bad stock to buy? You want to bet on GameStop that's up 300%. And if you tried to short it, these guys on Reddit are going to make you go bankrupt today. I mean, it's insane. Wouldn't you rather bet on yourself? What Jonathan was talking about is him and his brother got together. And that's a great story. If you just want to go back and listen to why they didn't grow up together. They met later in life, which is a whole nother story. But they've put together, and they've minimized risk by continuing to buy businesses. And yes, SBA loans are taking any loans a risk, but I think it's a great risk. 10 years instead of most seller financing is 3 to 5 years. So you're talking about lower payments. I really think it's a good bet. And what do we see the SBA do during this time? During the COVID crisis, they were giving people the ability not to pay the loans.
Yeah, they really doubled down on helping small business owners, right? It's the Small Business Administration. And what we really did see from the SBA over the last year is they doubled down in support of small businesses. And it's funny, Andy, because I did another talk yesterday. I just gave the whole speech that you just did about betting on yourself. And, how I look at it is that if you go out and you buy a business and you take a loan, whether it's an SBA, conventional seller note, whatever, what's the worst case that happens? It doesn't work out and you owe the money back anyway, right? But you're betting on yourself. You have full control over that whole process. You control whether the business succeeds or doesn't succeed. It's not, some guy in a boardroom that's making decisions on how the business is going to operate and if your job's going to be there or not. And we're sitting here and we've talked about this for over 2 years now on the podcast, that buying a business is a great opportunity. And we do that from our position as business brokers and the top business brokerage office in the world. But we also do that personally. Andy and I have bought and sold businesses. We've grown our businesses through acquisition. We know this is a great strategy for someone looking to get into entrepreneurship rather than starting their own thing from scratch. Or if you own a company like Jonathan does, and you're just looking to grow it. There's so many great opportunities.
Buying a business, I've seen very few people just go flat out of business. Where it just didn't work out. I've seen it, unfortunately, once in a while, but the rate of default is very, very low. The SBA program, except when they're giving money away like this, usually is one of a money maker for the United States government, which through the guaranteed fees, they keep putting this money back in. That's why they went from 2 million to 5 million during the economic downturn. They just keep betting on this because they know it works. It creates jobs, it creates income, which creates taxes. They're getting paid back on this over and over again. They understand that the small business economy is the lifeblood of America. And so we think, again, we think this is such a great opportunity. Is this the 100th episode? We're darn close.
We're pretty darn close. So I think we should probably check on that. Yeah.
We should have a 100th episode kind of party. So we'll have to figure it out. But, so we have a lot of content out there, which you did mention. We have a whole buyer series that we put together. We can condense some of our best buying and put it together and put it in a series. So there's a great way to just get some of the great buyer info, but all the entrepreneur stories that we have on there. And that's what this is. This is your journey as a buyer or a seller. If some of the sellers might be out there today, this is your journey. And we're here to help you. We bleed this stuff. We feel for you. We're emotionally invested. Well, I just love some of the business owners. Jonathan's one of them, but I have people that have been in business. My own brother, who I sold an insurance company to, has grown his insurance company. My stepbrother. I've sold businesses to lots of my family, and it's great to see them grow.
So we want to thank everybody for joining us today. It was great to get together live once again. We'll continue to do these, but you can check us out on thedealboardpodcast.com. On Spotify, it's called The Deal Board. I always had that question too. I know we didn't get to everybody's questions, and there's some questions we intentionally skip because they're better answered by bankers or CPAs.
Yeah. we danced on that edge a little bit.
Yeah. So what you can do is if you go to our website, thedealboardpodcast.com, there's a contact us form, fill that out, drop the question in there, and we'll connect you to a great resource who can answer that question for you.
Be happy to do it. Wow, this is great. Danielle, thanks for being our moderator. Really appreciate it. Jonathan, thanks for coming in and out there, and thanks for coming in and being a great guest and a great customer over the years. Randy Bring, who takes great care of them. Randy Bring, incoming chairman of the IBBA. So thank you for doing that. And Jessica, my partner, another great episode.
Yeah. Thank you all, and we will talk to you soon.
Thanks for tuning into the show today. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends on social media. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcasting app. If you have questions, would like to appear, or have suggestions for topics for the show, get in contact with us through our website, thedealboardpodcast.com.